What's good, everybody? It's the Connor with Cab Show. NFL Week 7 really had some tragic games. Looking at the Indianapolis Colts, we got cheated. Obviously, the last two penalties of the game, it was insane. I thought for sure, thinking now that the NFL, I do think it somewhat is rigged. It's just like, how are the Colts going to get screwed like this? Yes, I understand the PI call at the very end, even though that was an uncatchable pass, and then we strip sack the guy and they call another flag. It's just so silly, and it sucks. It's the reality of being an Indianapolis Colts fan, is that, sometimes we're just going to, get screwed, and that's just part of life. But in the NFL, it sucks, man, because a lot of people put a lot of money on these games, and when a referee, we don't know if he's involved in some other stuff where it's like, hey, you take a couple penalties for us, you help us out, give us 30 yards in penalties, we'll benefit you, we'll get some cash to you under the table. You never know these type of allegations or things that can happen that you don't see from the common fan. So looking at this Colts game, I thought for sure it was rigged. It's like, how are they losing to the Browns, even though single-handedly Myles Garrett is the reason the Browns won this game. He blocked that kick, he had many sacks, he was everywhere. So if you picked up Myles Garrett in fantasy football, you definitely capitalized. He scored over 30 points as a defender. At defensive end, that's unheard of too. That is crazy. I just, looking at the Colts, I mean, they played really nice. Jonathan Taylor had some nice runs. Josh Downs, who I scooped off waivers in fantasy, he snapped off 125 yards receiving in a tutty. We had Michael Pittman Jr. get lucky with that broken tackle, take it all the way to the touchdown. But this was the game that the Colts should have won. At the end of the day, we should have won. We can make excuses and say, hey, it was the refs, which I do think that's a great excuse, is saying the ref took a dive and we got screwed of a couple calls. And it's just like, how does this happen? But that's the NFL. They missed a couple calls that helped us out when we played Baltimore in Baltimore. We obviously had a PI call. They didn't call it on like 4th and 5. And Lamar and the Baltimore's like looking at him like, really? He was on his back. But we got the call then. So technically, karma comes back around to us. So that was due. We were due for a couple bad calls, but hats off to the Cleveland Browns getting the job done. 39-38. Deshaun Watson was hurt. I think the second half he didn't even play. But overall, it was definitely Myles Garrett was the X factor for Cleveland. He was single-handedly the only reason Cleveland was in this game. Because of Myles Garrett, what an X factor he is. But shout out to the Cleveland Browns. It's going to be a long season for the Indianapolis Colts without Anthony Richardson in games like this where we should win and we end up losing. It's definitely going to hurt later on in the season. But shout out to the Cleveland Browns getting the dub in Indy. Sad, tragic. And then we got the Atlanta Falcons versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, Atlanta, I picked Atlanta, got it right. I thought for sure Atlanta's just a better overall team. Even though Desmond Ridder, he just wants to give the game away, fumbled the ball on like the 1 yard line. And I'm looking at it thinking, man, why did he even slow down? I feel like he slowed down a couple strides right before he even got across the goal line. So, and Winfield hit it out, and it was really a touchback, and I thought for sure they were going to lose the game. Since then, they ended up battling back. But, shout out to Atlanta Falcons, man. I just think, they're the better team, and I'm looking at Tampa Bay, and really their first 3 games were definitely some flukes. Even though Baker's been, here and there, but this game, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Mike Evans, 82 yards receiving in a tutty. But overall, just Tampa Bay's just not that team anymore without the GOAT. When the GOAT leaves your franchise, whether it's Tampa Bay or the New England Patriots, at the end of the day, you guys are going to start to fumble. Really. But shout out to the Patriots getting the upset victory this weekend. But shout out to Atlanta Falcons beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then we got the Buffalo Bills, speaking of the New England Patriots, with the upset over the Bills. I cannot believe this. I definitely went Buffalo. I even did the 7.5. I thought, hey, Buffalo's going to run away with this. This is their time to really get back on track, get back on rhythm for Josh Allen and company. No, it was the complete opposite. It was really a meltdown for the Buffalo Bills. I'm thinking, how are you guys going to lose to the trash New England Patriots? Shout out to Coach Bill Belichick, one of the greatest coaches of all time, just hit his 300th win in his career, which is crazy. 300 wins as a head coach in the NFL. That's unheard of. Shout out to Coach Bill Belichick. Well-deserved win. They fought for it, and really Mac Jones finally played well. He had one good game, and this was the game. 2 touchdowns this game. No picks. Every other game is pick. But this game, he finally stepped it up. Kendrick Bourne, 63 yards receiving in a tutty. So overall, it's just Patriots, man. I can't believe it. Josh Allen, he had a pick with 2 touchdowns. But overall, it's just the Buffalo team right now is just very inconsistent, and their defense is definitely their weakness. I mean, that's why they lost last year in the playoffs to the Bengals. Their defense is just giving up big plays after big plays. There's no reason that the Patriots and Mac Jones should be able to walk down the field and just score a touchdown. Like, the Bills got a lot to do if they want to run deep in the playoffs. I mean, make the playoffs is different, fine. I get that, but to run deep in the playoffs, the way the Bills are playing, they're going to be out the first round. So, Josh Allen, I expect them to turn this season around right now. I thought for sure they'd have 1 or 2 losses. That's it. More than that. But, shout out to the New England Patriots upsetting the Buffalo Bills. I cannot believe it. And then we got the Washington Commanders versus the New York Giants. I knew I should have went Giants on this pick. I went Washington. It sucks because it's such a, division rivalry game. But overall, the Giants, Tyrod Taylor, 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley, 77 yards rushing. And it was all them. Sam Howell had a pick. Terry McLaurin, 90 yards receiving. But overall, we understand that the Washington team had a couple good games, but their coach isn't that good. And I think Washington right now is going to be one of the worst teams to finish off the NFL season this year. I just see it happening. I just don't see any chemistry there. I don't see any flow in Washington. It's just it's hard to watch right now. I feel like they're becoming one of the worst teams in the NFL. But shout out to the Giants getting their second dub all season. Shout out to the New York Giants. And then we got the Detroit Lions versus the Baltimore Ravens. This game surprised me the most. I went Detroit, and they got blown out. They got destroyed 38-6. Lamar went crazy. 3 touchdowns, 357 yards passing. Just went crazy. And like I said, Lamar's really their main guy, obviously, in Baltimore. But he just took off. And I'm looking at the Detroit Lions and thinking, wow, can't believe that's only their second loss. The way they took this L looked like they've been losing all year. They look like a high school JV team, dude, like out there. Jared Goff did not look nice. He had a pick. St. Brown over 100 yards receiving, but that was about it. The Detroit Lions were just irrelevant right now. It's sad, but even though they only have 2 losses this year, which is crazy. They could, next Monday, they're on the Monday night, they win that, they're 6-2 going in their bye. Who would have thought the Detroit Lions would be 6-2 going into their bye? Like, that is crazy, but, nothing to take away from the Lions. They just got outplayed. They got destroyed, but the Detroit Lions will be back. I'm not worried about it, but for the Ravens, everyone's high in praise on the Ravens, saying they're the best team in the league. Let's punt the brakes here. They lost to the Indianapolis Colts. They lost to my Colts. They lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which they gave that game away. So, really, I understand why people are jumping on the Ravens right now. They really technically should be undefeated, but at the same time, this is the NFL. All it takes is one game. Even in the playoffs, one game's all it takes. But shout out to the Baltimore Ravens. They are definitely a top 5 team in the NFL. And then we got the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Chicago Bears. I picked the Raiders in this matchup. I thought for sure it'd be a nice, solid pickup, but I was definitely way off. I mean, Josh Jacobs just 35 yards rushing, only gave me like 7 points in fantasy. It's just like, why did I even draft Josh Jacobs? Like, it sucks, dude. Like, I mean, last year he had a great season. Then this year, their team sucks. And I don't want to put all the blame on Josh Jacobs in the offensive line, but it's just like, dude, like 7 points in fantasy. I'm used to Josh Jacobs putting 27 points up average from last year in fantasy. Like, it's sad. It's really sad, but, shout out to the Bears, man, and shout out to Tyson Bargant. Never heard of this dude. Nobody's really heard of him, but he had 162 yards passing in a tutty for the Chicago Bears. I never heard of this Tyson dude, but really he looked calm, composed. I think he's a Division II quarterback, they were saying. He won like a championship there, but overall he looks calm and composed and really looks like a good quarterback. So I think they're going to stick with him until Fields gets back. But Devontae Foreman, he had 89 yards rushing and 2 tutties, and it was all Chicago Bears. Ran right through the Raiders. The Raiders, man, it sucks, man. I don't understand why this offseason they said, hey, it's a bright idea to trade Derek Carr. That's just a great, brilliant idea. Smart as you could get. It's just dumb. It's dumb. I mean, Jimmy G, he didn't even start. He didn't even play because he's hurt. Like, it sucks, man. The Raiders, they're done. Their season's over. But shout out to the Chicago Bears getting the job done. And then we got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the LA Rams. This was definitely a sneak pick all weekend. I picked the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it cashed out. Kenny Pickett, 230 yards passing. You had George Pickens, 107 yards receiving. Najee Harris finally got his first touchdown all freaking season, and it came in week 7. Finally, I hope Najee Harris continues to snap off. Dang. But over at the Rams, Puka, 154 yards receiving. Stafford, a touchdown and a pick. But overall, the Rams are kind of overrated. They really are. I mean, they got some nice names on their team. Puka and Cobb. Matt Stafford, solid. But overall, once Kyron Williams went out for about a month, I knew they were going to lose this game, and that's why I went Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, you got Watt, you got T.J. Watt. The defense is nice. I'm telling you, the Pittsburgh Steelers are a nice team. They really are, and really they should focus on their offensive line. They got to protect Kenny Pickett more. They got to be able to run the ball with Najee Harris better, you know, moving towards the second half of the season. So that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers got to work on. But for the Rams, I've never really been on fawn and tide for the Rams. I mean, yeah, they won a Super Bowl a couple years ago with that fluke year. I mean, they had so many great players, but other than that, it's just like, oh, one lucky year. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I look at the Rams right now. That I don't think they're going to be a playoff contender this year. I just don't. But shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers getting the freaking dub, the away team against all odds. I'm telling you, even though I went with the over, the under hit, but shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the LA Rams in LA. And then we got the Arizona Cardinals versus the Seattle Seahawks. I picked Seattle. I picked the 8-point spread. It hit. I went with the under. That hit. Geno Smith, did his own thing. 2 touchdowns and a pick. You know, Kenneth Walker, 105 yards rushing. And it was all Seattle. I mean, you're playing Arizona. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL, if not the worst team in the NFL. So it's not really saying much with Pete Carroll in Seattle, what they have to do. I just think going deeper into the season, how is Seattle going to do with Geno Smith down the stretch? How is Geno Smith going to play down the stretch? It's going to be interesting to see, but a huge win by the Seattle Seahawks over the Arizona Cardinals. And then we got the Green Bay Packers versus the Denver Broncos. I went Green Bay here, which was pretty silly, really. I mean, they don't look good at all. You know, Jordan Love looks iffy right now with 2 tutties and 1 pick. But, you know, shout out to Russell Wilson. Finally stepped it up. Finally has his best game in like 2 years, dude. Like 194 yards passing and a tutty. No turnovers. But right now, I'm looking at Denver and thinking, man, they're still hard to watch. There's just flow, the chemistry with the Denver Broncos. It's just not there. I don't know what Sean Payton and Russ, I feel like their relationship isn't the best. We see Sean Payton on the sideline, you know, a couple times this year, like really yell at Russ and say, hey, it's time to wake up. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got paid all this money. Like, wake up, Russ. Obviously, Russell's not the same guy he was in Seattle. He's way past his prime. The hunger's gone. And I think eventually Denver's going to definitely bench him eventually. Unless he continues to play like this, you know, solid, decent games, 200 yards passing. But I'm used to Russell Wilson throwing 330 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. You know, back in Seattle. That Russell's gone. It's gone, but Denver got the job done. But you know, I'm looking at Green Bay and saying, you know, Jordan Love's still young. You still got A.J. Dillon, that veteran, 61 yards rushing and 34 yards receiving. But overall, I can't believe Denver lost. I mean, you lost to the trash Denver Broncos. Like, all washed up. But shout out to the Denver Broncos getting a big win at home against Green Bay. And then we got the L.A. Chargers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know why I went Chargers. This was my dumbest pick all weekend by a long shot. I thought the Chargers would pan out, but I realized, you know, it's still a lot of hype with the Chargers. They get a lot of hype. They have nice jerseys. They look good in pictures. But when it comes to winning games and winning Super Bowls, the Chargers aren't the team to do it. They just aren't. You know, Justin Herbert, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. They gave him, like 200 M's? Like, dude, Justin Herbert is so overrated. You know, anybody that picked him up in fantasy, you're probably losing some games here because of Justin Herbert. He's just not performing great. He's just not. Joshua Palmer, 133 yards receiving. You know, but still, it was all Kansas City and Mahomes, the golden child of the NFL, the poster boy. 4 tutties, 424 yards passing, which is crazy, dude. Like, Mahomes, you know, he can do it all. He really can, even though he had a pick. His boy Kelsey, 179 yards receiving in a tutty. You know, Kelsey's winning on and off the field. Shout out to T Swift one time. Travis Kelsey taking off, man. I support Travis Kelsey. I always said he's one of the greatest tight ends of all time. He's really solidifying it now. I thought Rob Gronkowski was taking that position. But right now, man, I'm telling you, I think Travis Kelsey's overtaking Gronk, especially if they win another Super Bowl in Kansas City. It's going to be great. But I'm looking at Kansas City and thinking, hey, you know, you got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, Poncho. You got so many great players. You know, Pacheco, you know, he's a nice running back. I love Pacheco. I think he's great for fantasy-wise. But I'm looking at Kansas City thinking, man, like, they don't have the toughest schedule either, so they're 100% going to get in the playoffs. The thing is, are they going to get a first-round bye? You know, that's the huge thing with Kansas City. If they do get a first-round bye, well, they're going to be favorites probably again to win it. I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of whales. A lot of people put millions of dollars on Kansas City to repeat. You know what I'm saying? It's tough. It's tough to repeat in the NFL, but Kansas City, the way they're playing now, There's a big possibility of them repeating, but shout to the Kansas City Chiefs getting the dub. And then we got the Miami Dolphins versus the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday Night Football. I picked the Philadelphia Eagles. It hit the 2.5. I picked this spread. You know, Jalen Hurts, 2 tutties and a pick. You had A.J. Brown, who's been going crazy, dude. A.J. Brown is just going insane. 137 yards receiving and a touchdown. A.J. Brown, for fantasy purposes wise, this is definitely a must scoop up, dude. Like, if you scooped him up, that'd be crazy. This is A.J. Brown's 5th straight game with 125-plus receiving yards. He ties the longest streak in the NFL history with Calvin Johnson and Pat Stud still back in 1966. Calvin Johnson back in 2012 did it. So he tied these guys. I mean, A.J. Brown, 1 game away, dude, from beating the streak in the NFL. Another record broken. Shout out to A.J. Brown. And you bet this weekend they're going to target A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's in the locker room right now at practice saying, hey, I just need 100 yards to break this record in the NFL. Like, this would be great, dude. 6 straight games, over 125-plus yards receiving, dude. That'd be insane, A.J. Brown. So take off A.J. Brown. Take off Philly. I'm looking at Miami. Tua did not have a good game. I have him on my fantasy team, but at the same time, I'm thinking, dude, like, I don't need games like this. I need Tua to throw for 4 touchdowns and 1 pick and, like, 400 yards like Mahomes did. I need those type of numbers. You know, I haven't had that in a minute, so I'm looking at Tua and thinking, man, dude, like, what's going on? And then Tyreek Hill, 88 yards receiving in a tutty. He balled out. Like I said, Tyreek Hill, the best receiver in the NFL by far. I mean, he should have went top 5 in everyone's fantasy football draft everywhere, nationwide, top 5, dude. Like, if Tyreek is not going to the top 5, something's wrong because he's the best receiver in the league. But shout to the Philadelphia Eagles getting the job done on Sunday Night Football. And then we had the Monday Night Football game, the San Francisco 49ers versus the Minnesota Vikings. I called this upset. I knew Minnesota was going to run away with it. I'm looking at 49ers and thinking, well, there are some question marks. And the big question mark right now is Brock Purdy, their quarterback. You know, 2 picks, only 1 touchdown. Through that pick late game on Monday Night Football, you know, when they're driving down the field, and really he just was not open. I don't know what it is. I mean, Brock Purdy definitely is going to have to adapt to that. You're going to have to adapt to the criticism. You know, guys are doubting you now. People are saying Brock Purdy's going to be benched. All this stuff, I think it was a bad game, but overall, there was definitely some inexperience in Brock Purdy this game on Monday night. You know, you guys should have, you know, really ran the ball more with McCaffrey on that last possession instead of throwing up these balls like that. I don't know. You know, Brock Purdy just did not look good this game. You know, hats off to Kirk Cousins. 2 tutties and 1 pick, 378 yards passing for Kirk Cousins, which is pretty crazy. I mean, right now, we look at Kirk Cousins and his stats this year. He's been playing great. But I don't understand how they only have 3 victories. Like, that's what blows my mind. Even without Justin Jefferson, they're winning these big games. But overall, I'm looking at Minnesota and thinking, even if they do get in the playoffs this year, what's going to happen? It's the same story. They're going to get in the playoffs, and they're going to lose a big game. That's what's going to happen, dude. Like, Minnesota, there's nothing special about them. I think Justin Jefferson this offseason is going to request a trade, and he's going to go somewhere else. You know, I just don't see it really meshing there, you know, in Minnesota. I just don't. And then Jordan Addison on my fantasy squad, even though I did not start him this week, I'm so salty about that. He had 123 yards receiving and 2 tutties. He took a touchdown away, stripped the dude. The dude had a pick. He stripped it from him and ran it. Shout out to Jordan Addison from USC. This cat is nice. I think he's going to be their go-to guy. He did get late hurt on this Monday Night Football game. I think he tweaked up his ankle or his foot. But overall, I'm still looking at Minnesota and thinking, man, like, they still have a shot here. You know, Kirk Cousins isn't that terrible, but he's an average at best quarterback, okay? Pump your brakes. Look at all the weapons that he has on that team, dude. Like, Kirk Cousins is just, I think he's more privileged than anything, dude. I just don't see it that much, man. Like, I mean, do you guys think, man, Kirk Cousins, man, he's a legend quarterback? No. I think Kirk Cousins, like, all right, well, he can throw the ball down the field. You know, he can do the X's and O's, the fundamentals of football. You know, but to win a Super Bowl on a game-winning drive, I don't know. I just don't know, but a huge win by Minnesota and San Francisco. McCaffrey, another touchdown, dude. This is, what, 17 games in a row with a TD? Or 16 in a row? That is insane, dude. McCaffrey is a dog. the best running back in the league by far. Anybody who disagrees really doesn't understand the game of football, man. It's just like McCaffrey, the reason what makes him the greatest, right now, I want to say the GOAT. I'm not saying he's the greatest running back. I'm saying right now in 2023, he's the best running back in the league because he can go out on to receiver. He can go out on the flat. He can run routes. He can mismatch on a linebacker. That what makes McCaffrey such a mismatch. He can do it all. He can't just run, and he can go out and run great routes like he's a slot receiver. So that's what makes McCaffrey, and that's why he's one of the highest paid running backs, $16 million a year because of this. So shout out to McCaffrey. 49ers need to turn it around, but shout out to the Minnesota Vikings. This was a crazy week 7. I did not see some of these games the way they played out. But overall, the most surprising game to me was definitely the Detroit Lions. I did not think the Lions would get blown out the way they did in Baltimore. But, hey, it's just one game. It's not a playoff game. We're still kind of towards the middle of the season. But huge win by the Ravens. Wow. And the Patriots getting the Bills, to fold, man. The Bills, I think they're overhyped as well. And my Indianapolis Colts, yet again, continue to lose. We just find ways. We really do, whether it's the ref or the play. But, I hope my Indianapolis Colts, I pray for better games in the future. But what a week 7 for the NFL. It's the Clouded with Cab show. Let's go!